It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome. Thanks so much for being with us today. Again, starting the beginning of your week with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Please welcome back to the program. He's the co-founder of the Media Equality Project and editor-in-chief of MediaEqualizer.com. We've got Mr. Brian Maloney back with us. Brian, good morning to you, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So on Friday, I was prepping for our interview, Brian, and we were going to talk a little bit about, Dianne Feinstein and Brett Kavanaugh and, this letter that she's been sitting on since June and everything else. And I know we're still going to talk about that, but we've had some new developments because the accuser is now accusing the nominee for the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, of sexual misconduct. What do you make of this?
Well, I do think that you hit the correct point first there, and that is, what was Dianne Feinstein doing sitting on this thing? So now we've got this situation where, we can't proceed with this until this has been investigated. Well, Feinstein has had this for months. And so now conveniently she drops this at the 11th hour when it can do the most political damage. And look, what Democrats are trying to do here is stall the vote until after the November election. That way they can win control of the U.S. Senate, win control of Congress, and then scuttle this whole thing, and then Trump will never get anyone he wants confirmed. So that's what all this is about, is trickery. So, am I going to be able to sit here and say that this didn't happen 35 years ago in high school or whatever? No. But, if you're able to look at this and not feel like it's become a theater of the absurd, that's exactly what it is. It's absolutely ridiculous what's going on.
Yeah, you are exactly right. I also think that there's probably some fundraising to some of this. I know a couple of weeks ago up at MediaEqualizer.com, back when Cory Booker was having his grandstanding Spartacus moment, they were sending out emails fundraising, trying to, they want to run for president, some of these people.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question that all this has been an opportunity for, seeing which Democrat looks strongest going into 2020. So there's that. But I just think that Feinstein, she has no excuse, for sitting on something for 3 months and then dropping it when it's politically timed to this extent. So, but the bottom line is that Kavanaugh has now had his reputation smeared. I don't know why anybody would ever want to be on the Supreme Court, run for president, run for office, do anything anymore, because it's all about trickery, and it's all about sliming people at the worst possible moment. Think about it. We're actually now seriously talking about what Kavanaugh may or may not have done in high school. High school. So, if you can look at this and not shake your head in disbelief, I think we're in a very, very sad state of affairs.
No, there's no doubt that we are. So this is a delay tactic. I agree with you. That does sound right. They're trying to delay this because they know if they can torpedo his nomination, it's going to be a while before Donald Trump gets another one. It will be after the election, but before there's another nomination. What are your thoughts on this, Brian Maloney, in terms of, the vote, I believe, is scheduled for Thursday. You have one Republican, Jeff Flake, saying we don't need to vote, we need to delay it. What do you think? Or do you think they'll go ahead and stand firm? The White House, as of last night, was standing firm by Kavanaugh's denials, and they were going to move forward. What's Chuck Grassley going to do? What are you hearing?
Well, I think, notice how it is one of the most liberal Republicans in the U.S. Senate, Jeff Flake, one who's also on his way out the door, who was the first to jump out and say we need to delay this, almost in tandem with the Democrats. It's like this whole thing was choreographed by the left ahead of time. Now that, look, should they look into this? I guess so. I don't want to sit here and attack this woman except to say that, she does have a history of left-wing activism, of far-left activism that was immediately apparent. There are also some rumors going around I don't want to get into too much yet until we have some more information. But, there's a lot going around, so we need to look into motives. But the bottom line here is that anyone looking to be confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court in the future is susceptible to any person out there who writes a letter and says, this person did something awful in high school and then the whole thing is over. I mean, no one will ever be confirmed to anything again. That's really where we're at now.
Yeah, unless that letter is making an accusation against a liberal progressive that believes in an abortion, and then of course
then it would be dropped like a hot potato, like Keith Ellison, who is deputy chair of the DNC. Where there are credible abuse allegations, including a 911 call, and that was swept under the rug by the Democrats. So I mean, they have a very selective sense of outrage about this, no question.
Yeah, and you have to ask this, and I can appreciate being delicate here, right? When it comes to this, well, I guess she's now 50. This woman's allegations here about what happened 35 years ago in high school, allegedly. But you got to wonder. I mean, Judge Kavanaugh has been a judge in a high court for a long time, and I know he's going to the highest court here in this situation. But why not come? I mean, if it was that big of a deal, and it affected you that much, why wait till now? Unless, I mean, I guess I'm saying if there's anybody out there that says I can't believe you're not believing her, well, hang on now, because the fact that she's just now coming out, you can't help but think that this is really just because of political differences.
Well, yes, don't forget that Judge Kavanaugh has been subjected to 6 FBI background investigations through the course of his career. 6. None of those FBI investigations ever turned up any of this over the course of all those years. None of them. At some point they would have talked to people that Judge Kavanaugh knew in high school. There's no question. At some point. So where did this come from? I mean, we're right to question the timing and the validity. We're not saying this woman is making it up, but we're saying that, look, I mean, the circumstances are fishy.
Well, I think this is going to be a mess because she's now saying she is willing to testify publicly. And if that happens, I mean, can you just imagine what the fake news media is going to do with this? I mean, they're going to run it live. They're going to replay it constantly. And what this is you can just see, this is an allergic reaction from the swamp, doing everything they can to make sure Donald Trump does not get another Supreme Court justice, does not get to pick another Supreme Court justice before the midterms.
And it's right out of the Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill playbook. I mean, except that now we're talking about high school. I mean, really. I mean, next time it will be middle school. Yeah. I mean, that's really where we're going with this. It's just going to keep getting dumber every time.
I guess towards the end of last week, when it was revealed that Dianne Feinstein, again, Senator Dianne Feinstein, who I want to remind everybody may in fact be a Chinese agent. I mean, she definitely had, she's ignorant. I didn't know I employed somebody for decades, that was my driver that was working for the Chinese government until the FBI told me. I swear I didn't know. But so Dianne Feinstein, she sits on this letter since June. And then the report that I read, Brian, said that the FBI, she referred it to the FBI. That was the headline, but the FBI says, we're not investigating this. Now that the accuser has come forward, I wonder if that might change.
Well, now, when you have this Jeff Flake kind of situation where you have a couple of Republicans, I mean, it does seem like it changes the dynamic. But you're absolutely right about Dianne Feinstein, one of the least trustworthy people in the U.S. Senate, not just because her driver was a spy for China, but that her husband, Richard Blum, has been working, has been closely tied with the Communist Party leaders in China for decades because of his business dealings. So, I mean, really, this is a person who really should have left office a long time ago. Dianne Feinstein at this point is absolutely ancient and just so entrenched in the swamp that it's a
Yeah, and I saw where even Ruth Bader Ginsburg was talking about how hyper-partisan the confirmation process is. And, we've really seen that. I mean, if you go back, a couple of decades, this used to be a very bipartisan process where you had people getting confirmed 90 with 90 yes votes. And now the margins are so thin because there are clearly two different philosophies on how to, interpret the Constitution of the United States, Brian.
Well, sure, one party wants to flush it down the toilet. That's their interpretation of the Constitution. Yeah, there are two different ways of looking at it. One side values it and the other doesn't. So that's the bottom line here. But we are living in ridiculous times, and news, the fake news media has become more absurd than ever. But I mean, at some point, this is going to come back to haunt them because they're going to have a Democratic president, and who's going to want to confirm somebody to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they've opened the door for a lot of shenanigans here. So,
well, I'm just, I don't know what to do in this situation. Like, I don't know. Do you go ahead and have the vote anyway? And what are they going to do if you did? I mean, you talk about meltdown mode. And again, the American people, I think, see through this for exactly what it is. And I think they think this is absurd and ridiculous.
Look, this is a numbers game. It's about counting to 51, and that's the bottom line. If Jeff Flake or somebody is not going to vote, Susan Collins especially, if they come out and say, I'm not voting for this, then the thing, then it's effectively dead because you don't have the votes. So, well, the other issue, though, are the Democratic senators from red states. And how they're going to vote. But look, if they have Jeff Flake and other people providing cover for them, they'll go ahead and as well. So if you don't have 51, then there's no point in proceeding with the vote. So Republicans the leadership doesn't have that much power over this. It all depends. But someone like Flake, we can't get rid of that guy fast enough.
Yeah. Okay, so if in fact this is now stalled and delayed, what does that mean about the midterm elections? I mean, that's got to be a motivator for those of us on the right to get out and vote.
Well, that's why our group, we have created a new super PAC called Red Wave America, and we're actually intervening in these races because we're so disgusted. Because our members, we have a group called Stop the Scalpings on Facebook. We have 111,000 members there, and they asked us to become more activists in nature. So we created a group, which you can look up our page on Facebook called Red Wave. Just type that in one word.
Yeah, you broke up there, Brian, a little bit. You broke up.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Red Wave.
Sure. So we have our new group, Red Wave America, and you just use the @ symbol and look us up on Facebook. So we're intervening in some of these races because, look, the left is trying to take down Ted Cruz in Texas with one of the sleaziest candidates they've put forward in a long time, this guy, Beto O'Rourke, who pretends to be Hispanic but isn't, and, who's Irish American, but pretends to be Hispanic with a name that's just a nickname, he made up. So I mean this is the kind of what we're facing in 2018. This is ridiculous.
Brian Maloney, I appreciate it. Editor-in-Chief, MediaEqualizer.com. Go there now for some great stories and great insight. Brian, it's always great to have you on and to have your analysis. I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Have a great morning. Folks, we're going to